welcome to another interview from Another Zero. I am very, very happy to have Gloria Calderón Kellett here in the Zero. Welcome from one of the good ones. Welcome, Gloria, welcome.
Thank you, thank you. You said my name exactly right, and I can't tell you how happy that makes me.
I appreciate you telling me because you have no idea the number of names that I've botched. And
perfect. The Calderón was perfect, and the Kellett was perfect because people get the Kellett wrong all the time. So thank you very much.
I paid attention because when I saw your name for the first time, when I went and saw the play and everything, I was like, Keller? Because I do that too, like super dyslexic. And then I saw it today and I'm like, no, it's Kellett. It's Kellett. So yay! Well, okay, let's dive in.
Dive in.
So the Old Globe right now is in their season is including one of your plays, one of the good ones. But before we get to that, I want to know, because I feel like you come from more of a TV background. Let's start from the beginning. Where are you from? All that fun stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I was born in Portland, Oregon, the daughter of Cuban immigrants. Mm-hmm. My parents came to the United States in 1962 during Operation Pedro Pan. I'll write about that one day. A lot of people do not know Latino history. It's not often taught in our books, which is unfortunate since we're the majority minority in the country. But there was a program where over 14,000 Cuban children, undocumented at the time, and unaccompanied minors were brought to the United States while the government hoped to get Castro out of power in Cuba. And then what happened was they weren't able to get Castro out. And so about a year later, both sets of grandparents were able to come over and be with their children. And then they started a new life here in the United States. But they came on planes. They were granted a path towards citizenship. Mm-hmm. And because of all of that, Cubans have thrived in the United States. And so it is why I am very politically active, aside from being a writer. Yep. My work really extends to when we do immigration right. It works really well. I'm a benefit. I've benefited from that in my life. And so to see it not done well and to see the harm that causes versus how I know it can be, because in one generation, what I've been able to do in my own life is a testament to what can happen when we do it correctly. So I'm a very passionate advocate for immigration and a necessary part of I believe, of this country, and being kind to immigrants and finding a path to citizenship.
Oh my God. Yeah. With the whole conversation.
So anyway, started in Oregon. So Miami was not, it was farms and orange groves. It was not the thriving metropolis it is now, largely due to the Cubans that came.
That's what I was going to say.
So they didn't have the infrastructure. They didn't have enough apartment buildings, enough schools, right? So there was not enough. So that's why the Cuban diaspora is so spread out across the United States, because the Catholic Church took in like 40 families can come to Portland and 40 families can go to Nebraska and 40 families, right? Like they were all spread out all over the country. Mm-hmm. So I grew up in a beautiful little Cuban community in Portland, Oregon, where I knew tons of Cubans. We ate Cuban food all the time. Every birthday party had 200 people. It was beautiful and a really, really lovely childhood. So when I was 14, we moved to San Diego. We went to San Diego when I was 12 for a spring break, and my parents were like, this is like Cuba, we love it. And so I went to San Diego, moved to San Diego, and I went to high school, University of San Diego High School in San Diego for 4 years. Then I came to Los Angeles to go to Loyola, and then went to London to go to University of London, and then I came back here where I have been. So I was a San Diegan for a while.
Wow. Well, that I didn't know. Mm-hmm. I did see the University of London. And I was like, And then how is it that you get into writing and then into television?
Well, I love storytelling. I did not know when I was young. I didn't know that I thought the actors just made up their lines. I didn't I didn't have a concept until I started to notice the credits, like written by, oh, interesting. Wait, somebody writes all that down. You know, you're a little kid. So I started reading plays. I started reading a ton, and I was like, oh, I think I want to do some version of storytelling, writing, acting. What does that look like? And so I initially started acting. And when I tried to get an agent and manager and go on auditions, all the auditions, and this is, 30 years ago, all the auditions were gangbanger's girlfriend and gangbanger sister.
Oh dear.
That's it. That's all I would go out for. And I was like, this, and I wouldn't get those roles because they're like, you don't have an accent. You're too fair. And I was like, well, I am Latina. They're like, well, you're not Latina enough. I'm like, I'm all Latina. So I don't know what, I don't know what that means. It was very clear to me that the people that were making the decisions of storytelling on TV did not understand my community. And so really quickly, I was like, I've got to help them. I've got to help them because they don't know who we are and they're getting it real wrong when we see it. So that's when I really took a shift and started writing. And I went to grad school in London and I came back and I was determined to write in order to really right the wrongs of Hollywood in all the years that they had gotten it so terribly wrong. So that was the shift for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
And why London?
I just thought that's where Shakespeare and great writers had come from. I had, when I studied abroad in Spain when I was at Loyola Marymount University where I went to school. And I spent the summer in London and I loved it. And I loved how the access, I mean, you could see a play for £5 in the West End. So I just immersed myself in theater and I thought, oh my gosh, what an incredible, you hold people plays, especially now. Now at the time, cell phones, we weren't so dependent on cell phones. Now we are. Theater is really the only place where you do not have a dual viewing experience. You have their eyeballs for, in this case, 90 minutes. I've got unfiltered access to these people for 90 minutes. What am I going to say? How am I going to make them feel? Hopefully I can make them feel good and seen, and hopefully I can make them laugh, and hopefully I can show our common humanity, and hopefully by the end of it, they've had a really good time and feel really good, but then on the drive home, they're going to talk about some real things.
Look at that. Yeah. And I went by myself to this place, so I was just talking about myself.
Oh, but you need to go with somebody to talk about it.
Exactly. I was like, ugh. But talking about that, I have to tell you my POV. That in my experience is, well, you're San Diegan. So, we're at the border, right? We overlook two countries. I grew up in Tijuana. So for me, I've been working in here for 15 years, but in the beginning, it was very hard, and it's still hard for me to see some, because there's always there's a range. It's not, but usually everything is like one-sided, and it just exercises this stereotype about Latin American people. So every time that I see a play that has to do with that, or the topic, or the family, or whatever, I'm like, I take a breath. I don't roll my eyes. I take a breath.
Yeah.
And I saw your play, and I was like, in the beginning, I was like, the very beginning, obviously, because that gorgeous set design, which the Globe is famous for. I'm like, oh my God, I'm taking notes on this house. Like, oh, look at the stairway to the, so all of that, I was like, oh my God. But then it starts, and then it goes, and it keeps going, and it keeps going, keeps going. And in one of your interviews, recent interviews, you said that for you, it was important to the accuracy. And I was like, she's hitting the mark so much, like with Latin American, Latine, Latinx, Latino, like all of that. Because I don't want to give it away too much, but where are you born? What are you? Question, all of these things, the Spanish, not growing up speaking Spanish, because obviously there's always this narrative, and I'll let you talk. I'm talking about
great.
I'm talking about there's this narrative especially here, because we are constantly sharing things, Mexico and United States, Mexican Americans, Latin Americans from other places, that we when we grew up in Mexico, we're like, you're not, you don't speak Spanish well enough, you're not Latino enough, you're not. And that's something that in my reviews, I mention a lot when it comes to portraying someone that's fluent in Spanish, and then they're not, right? But all these things, you capture them to the T. And I had not seen that. So I wanted to ask you where that comes from, like where this accurate accuracy.
I'm Latina. Like it's from my life. It's from reality and from my life and the life of my friends. Like so growing up in a Cuban community, we spoke Spanish growing up, and everyone spoke Spanish. And I would, one of the things a lot of the things I put in the play are from my life. But one of the things that my mother did say to me was, "No, Glorita, no, like me, like the lady on the TV." Like there was very much a do not have an accent. Like you need to assimilate. It was very important for my parents that I spoke perfect English. Really important. But that came at the detriment of me speaking perfect Spanish, for sure. My Spanish is fine. It's fine. It's not great. It's fine. I do understand it. I do speak it, but it's not great. I would never want to conduct an interview in Spanish because it's not perfect. And I have felt like words have become my lifeline to expressing who I am as a person and who I believe my community to be. And so when I moved from Portland, Oregon, where I grew up, to San Diego, and that was the first time I lived in a border town, the amount of Mexicans I knew that spoke no Spanish, none, blew my mind. It blew my mind. I was like, what? I don't understand. Literally Mexico, because when I lived in San Diego, we go to TJ all the time. We'd cross back and forth like nothing. I went to University of San Diego High School. It was 20 minutes from the border. Like, nada. We'd go there. We'd have some tacos, some delicious lobster tacos and beans and rice, and come back. Nothing. No lines. No, none of what exists now. It was super fun. I felt very safe. It was lovely. So, and then I also went to school with a lot of Mexican kids from Mexico that were the richest kids I knew. Yeah. So I was like, oh, TV is getting it so wrong, right? Because the richest people I knew when I lived in San Diego were the Mexicans from Mexico. The Chicanos that lived in Chula Vista, different, right? So it was like, oh, there's complexity even in this. The Mexican Americans versus the Mexicans. So there was so much, and then obviously the rich Mexicans spoke mostly Spanish. So it was like, oh, I'm seeing so much of that diaspora. What's that? I'm so curious about that. And it was stuff that like people don't talk about. People don't interact with. And the more I become a known person in the world, the more I've had to talk about it, because in Hollywood, you would think in a town that is, almost 50% Latino, Los Angeles, that there would be a better representation in C-suites and in spaces of power. There are not. It is still pretty dire. And then when you watch TV, Latino roles are 5% of what's on TV, and that 5% is largely stereotyped still. So it's incumbent on people like me who are able to break through for whatever reason to speak to it, to speak to our community, to try to right the wrongs, because I believe very, very passionately that storytelling deeply matters. Yes, it's entertaining. Yes, it's at the end of the day, all I want is for people to have a positive experience with my work, because I aim to build bridges through the work. I want to ask hard questions. I want to show that having hard conversations can be a good thing, but I also want you to leave the theater feeling good. And in order to do that, I have to speak truth to power. And that's what I'm trying to do, is show what my community is. Because also growing up in my house, I would have my Anglo friends, Caucasian friends, white friends, however you want to term it. They never wanted to leave my house. They had a really good time in my house. There was always food. I never had to ask. I mean, I remember, there's cultural things. Like I never had to ask if I could have people over. It's like people could always come over and there's always plenty of food.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a cultural thing. So I remember growing up watching sitcoms because I loved sitcoms growing up. The sitcom is a couch. The sitcom is inviting you into somebody's home and showing you their life. And I identified so much with those shows that I saw growing up. And yet no one that looked like me or my family was ever the central character of those sitcoms until George Lopez. And then, I made one, right? Like I made One Day at a Time. So, but One Day at a Time was very much a working class family. And it was very important for me when I wrote this play to show an affluent family, because that also exists in America. There's a lot of Latino affluence. And I think that's another common misconception. So to show this family in Pasadena that were affluent, that had generational wealth, Ilana's family has been there since before California was California. Enrique is first generation Cuban American. It was important to show what that all looked like as well. And the complexities that all of them have. There's 3 different Latinos in this family. Yeah. One is Mexican Puerto Rican, one is Cuban, one is all of those things, and American, right? Like, so what are all the conversations that happen surrounding that?
Yeah, exactly. And the colorism and all of that, and the reverse racism and everything that happens. That again,
well, and also how people also don't know Latinos can be racist. Latinos can be, right? Like it happens all the time. Colorism is so real in the community. Assumptions are made across the board. Everyone makes assumptions. Even the good people make assumptions, right? So it was like I needed to show people getting it wrong. Because I think right now we are in a moment, right? We are in another moment where hard things are happening and people don't want to talk about them. Mm-hmm. Hard things are happening. And the thing I hear across the board, especially in Latino families, is we just don't talk about it. We just try to keep the peace. And it's like, okay, by not talking about it, by keeping the peace, we're also complicit in what's happening. Mm-hmm. We have to talk about it. So what are ways we can talk about it? How can we talk about it? How can I show that you can talk about it lovingly? You can talk about hard things. And that's what I try to do in the play.
The story of it and how it is built, and again, how accurate it is with everything, with people who haven't seen it. Like there's a bunch of stereotypes, and then they're thrown up on there, and then they're like, let's talk about it. And then through the lens of when you assume, usually. So that's, I think, also when the comedy comes in, and there's a piñata, and it's the way that it's all, constructed is really smart. And I appreciated that. Is this your first play?
It's my first full-length play. So I've written a lot of short plays. Because normally I'm writing lots of TV and film, but there was a writer's strike. And during the writer's strike, I finally had the time to sit and write this play. And so that's what I did during the strike. I couldn't write TV and film, so I decided to write the play.
Gotcha. Perfect. Yeah. Well, Gloria, here in From Another Zero, it's from another zero because you just can't start from zero. Once you've learned, you have your tools, you have to start from another zero. So our guests here at the zero, we always ask them what their other zero or other zeros have been, which is a new start, another start, a start from the start, a mini start, because there's many, because that's life. Yeah. So what have been some of Gloria's?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, my life has been a game of pivot. That's been my whole life. So, I mean, the initial pivot was actor to writer. That was my first big pivot. Then it was writer to director. When I was doing One Day at a Time, I was struggling to find Latino directors. And so I think I'm the second Cuban American woman in the DGA.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Crazy. Mm-hmm. Embarrassing. Mm-hmm. Embarrassing for our culture. It is. So I direct a lot now. I just finished Lopez versus Lopez. And I'm going to be doing Happy's Place next year, which is our NBC shows. And then I would say the constant pivot to I'm a parent. I'm very protective of my children on social media, so the world does not have access to them. They're just mine.
Nice.
But there is a pivot to seeing them go off into the world and preparing them for that, and preparing my own life for what it looks like when my children are gone and I'm not crying all the time because I miss them so deeply. There's also the pivot of being of caring for my parents. That's also a very Latino thing. My parents live across the street.
Oh, nice.
Mhm. And my mother has Parkinson's and has a caregiver 6 days a week, and it's that transition of caring for our elders now and what that looks like, while still trying to be a person that is curious about the world, that engages with the world, that mentors, that tries to send the elevator back down. So it's a constant shift. It's constantly starting at zero. Every day, I think, is a zero, and then you're starting over.
Yeah.
What can I do today? How can I do better? How can I support my family, uplift my community, grow as an artist, grow as a person? How can I listen? I think right now people have a hard time listening. And I want to be a listener because I'm a writer. So I need to absorb. I need to hear what people are saying. I need to be constantly challenging my own opinions about things because I want my characters to be able to do that. So it really is reliant on me trying to really deeply listen to what is happening. We're in a moment in our country where it's very divided. How did that happen? Why did that happen? How do we bridge that gap? How do we bridge it? And obviously I'm very focused on Latinos and Latinidad because I'm fascinated by it. I'm fascinated by how so many of us came here the same way and have very different relationships with the country and with immigration and with whiteness and aligning with it, and how we vote and how we feel we are being protected or not by this government. So all of that stuff is super interesting to me. And so every day is a starting at zero and trying to figure all that out.
It's a musical which I love, because I also say theater is memory. It's also this record, this file. And Habana Madrid is one of those plays, musicals, that talks about the Cuban immigration with the kids, which I didn't know what you started with, how your family came.
I don't know this. Tell me, what is it called?
Habana Madrid. And it's also a woman. And it was, Habana Madrid was this place, this a dance music hall, and it's the history of salsa, that grew in Chicago, the Latino music scene, and there's like no record of it. Like, it's so hard.
I don't know about it. I'm so excited. I'm gonna look it up. What's
Habana Madrid, and it's it has a bunch of little stories, and one of the stories is three siblings that come to Chicago from Cuba, and it's that when they send the kids, and I didn't know, and it was so hard for me to find. And I don't remember, her dad was a Cuban baseball player, I think it was to the Cubs, I'm not sure, but because I see stuff. In order to continue to see stuff, my brain has to have space, so it can't stay there for that long.
I know, I get it.
And Gloria, it was so hard for me to find the dad because the pronunciation of his name kept being botched until it was something totally different. And I was like, oh my God, like, instead of, it went from Nájera to Nigeria so I couldn't find it. I was like, how do you spell that? And until finally I was like, oh, it's Nájera. Oh, and I found the guy, but it wasn't Nájera, but it's an example. But it's that, and I think it's amazing that we're having more and more, and women playwrights that are doing this, that are like, no, here you go, but I'll dose it with comedy. I'll put it in, it for everybody to see. Cause there's always people that are like, I'm leaving. This is offensive or whatever. And they walk out. So this was just nice. A one act that I absolutely love, especially in these times. So I'm very happy that I got to see your work, that I got to talk to you, and that you're such a smart lady.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, because we need that. We need that, especially going through the entertainment industry. I think that's a better way. Like you said, kind of sort of phrase it also.
Yes. No, I mean, it's deeply necessary, and we need a lot more of it. This is a hard time to break in. I have a lot of mentees that I'm, more therapist and counselor right now than mentor, because it's a really difficult time. There's such a deep contraction in Hollywood and such fear. I think what's been super interesting to me is reviews of the play have been really positive. But all of them are like, oh, it's like your favorite sitcom. Oh, Benito Martinez is a perfect sitcom dad. I'm like, on what sitcom? On what sitcom? That's not on TV, actually. Point at the sitcom where they're having one conversation about race or identity, or there's zero Latino sitcoms on TV.
Yeah, no.
So it is fascinating to me that often through a white lens, which is how we're reviewed, they don't even see that we are nowhere on television. I would love for that to be a sitcom. I would love for that to be conversations that are constantly happening on television. They're not. So it's like, oh, interesting. They're even dismissing. They're even not seeing, right? That is not happening. We do not have access. And as much as I love theater, love it, there is an access point. A lot of our community cannot afford to go to the theater. And thankfully, the Globe is very kind in there. They have, so many discounts and programs and things that reach out to the community. They've done such an exquisite job of outreach. But that's 600 people a night versus millions on television. So, for me, it's important to do the work across the board, for me to do it. Because for me, it's also meaningful to do it in front of mixed audiences. I love when everyone you were in the theater, everyone's laughing together. Old white people, young people of color. It's great. It's a very healing thing to laugh communally and to see that, like, oh, these are relatable things, whether you're Latina or not. So for me, that's also deeply moving, but I have to do it on all the different stages because I'm trying to get the word out to correct these moments and to try to continue these conversations and humanize the Latino experience.
Absolutely. So a movie would be next, maybe?
Well, I have several. I'm writing several right now. Not this one in particular, but I'm doing others. But yeah, the play has a long life. There's a bunch of different productions that are in the works for it. So that makes me really happy. But for me, it was very meaningful to go to the Globe, because when we first moved to San Diego, I did junior theater in Balboa Park. Aww. And I remember sitting there looking at the Globe going, oh, one day. So it's incredibly satisfying to be able to have a play in the big space now.
And then you had a bus of friends and family come down and see the show. So
I'm so blessed. I have a wonderful, wonderful community of people in my life, and I'm endlessly grateful.
Yeah. Well, it was wonderful. It's a wonderful experience. One of the good ones is still in San Diego this week. It's closing on the weekend. So if you're able to catch it. It's one of the shows that should not be missed. I do, and I did put it in my review. I know some of the understudies, and I am curious to kind of see them with the understudies, because I know their work, and I know that one of them is from Tijuana. So I was like, oh my God, I think the vibe would be another vibe, but we'll see.
Well, I mean, hopefully the play is going up all across the world. I would love for it to go. I know I have so many people in Mexico that came across the border to see it, and they were like, we want to bring this to Mexico. I'm like, yes, great.
It has the chops to really be anywhere. truly, because of the accuracy again. Anything that you'd like to add, Gloria? We loved having you here in the Zero. This is your home and you can come back whenever you like.
Thank you so much. This has been lovely. What a nice way to spend my morning.
Yay! Well,
yeah.
Of course. And everybody watching, remember that here we just don't start from zero, we start from another zero. So until the next one, bye.